And welcome back to Grow America Outlawed. We're joined again by Etienne de la Boetie Squared. He's the author of Government, the Biggest Scam in History, Exposed, which we talked about last time, the founder of Art of Liberty Foundation and the editor of Art of Liberty Daily News on Substack. And his latest interesting book is To See the Cage is to Leave It, 25 Techniques the Few Use to Control the Many. Darren's got a copy there, which exposes an intergenerational psychological operation by the government. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us.
Always good to be with you and your audience. And we always seem to have a really good conversation. So,
oh yeah, this will be fun. It's been because lots has changed since you were on. I mean, that government book was great. It's like a coffee table book. It kind of exposed it all. This seems to get a little bit more detailed into the psychological operation of it, but it's got that same style, lots of graphs, lots of memes, lots of visuals for people to see in there. So, and it's pretty mind blowing, honestly, when you put it all together like that, especially with what's happening right now with our culture war and everything, but just to see how you put it together with all the government stuff, it's a bit alarming.
You know, what we've been saying is, or what I've been saying is, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so now that both of you guys have had a chance to kind of flip through the book, I mean, do you like, out of curiosity, because y'all both read it now, like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like once somebody actually sees it with their own eyes, and you're like, if you didn't know that this was going on, you can't flip through this book and not realize what's going on. I'll throw it to y'all. Do you agree with that or not? I mean,
yeah, I do.
I have not read the book. I got it right before I left for Europe, and I just got back from Europe last night, so I haven't read it. Mm-hmm. So I am curious, but I do feel like I have flipped through it, and I don't think there was anything in there that I was shocked by after a decade of interviewing you several times, and it's just sort of, it's kind of where we expect to be, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I think it's centered. It's very USA centered. So for me, it's a bit weird it's a bit overwhelming to see it, actually, because it really does make me think, holy shit, it is a cult. Like, it's a cult.
It's a cult. And so now you've spoiled the ending. But so
I know. Sorry. But what we keep, like, one of the questions I was going to ask you afterwards, which we can get into afterwards, but just to give you some context, is because we're in Canada, it's such a different animal in Canada. The government, the UK, the EU, and Canada, the West is also destroying itself, but it's in a different way than the States. So it feels also very, I can't even think of the word, but it feels different compared to what we're going through here.
So now that the cat's out of the bag, so the book is about the U.S. government, and other governments are running the same playbook as well. But I think the U.S. has really got it down to a science, and they're running dozens of unethically manipulative, what I would term to be cult creation techniques on the population. A lot of these are being done surreptitiously. It's being done by Hollywood. Hollywood is secretly product placing the flag into moments of high positive emotion. They're putting you into a mandatory government school where the school is running, dozens of sub techniques, some of them, to indoctrinate statism, the belief in having a government as a religion. And so they don't call it a religion, but they're using all the exact same techniques that an unethically manipulative religion or a cult would use on their followers to get them to go along with the government, to get them to tithe, to get them to semi-voluntarily hand over, in the case of the United States, I don't know what your effective tax rate is here, but in the United States, if you include the overt taxes of the 1040, the income tax, if you include the hidden taxes of every time you get a gallon of gasoline or pay your cell phone bill or pay your cable TV bill or get an airline ticket, or if you're a smoker, if you buy a pack of cigarettes or get a beer, or like we're taxed a gazillion ways. And then inflation is the biggest kind of hidden tax. Now it's the tariff is also the hidden tax too. But like if you put all those together, it's over 50% of our income. And so they've indoctrinated the population into going along with having, being tax farmed and being, like if you're paying over 50% of your income to the government, that means you're working for the government every single day in January, February, April, May, June. And then they're just nice enough to spread it out over 12 months. But it is tax slavery, and they get the population to go along with it because they're running these tricks and techniques on the population. And so that's what the book breaks down.
Which I could almost be okay with, if it was just that, if we were going to just draw a line in the sand and it was just the king's coming and he's taking his 30 or 40%, but he's just going to leave you alone other than that. I like, all right, man, these terms are shitty for me, but acceptable. But it's like the king just has to keep taking ground on my personal freedom at the same time.
Yeah, he's got to force that needle into your arm.
Yeah, and it's not just that, among other things. It's just sort of intrusion all over the place where you can see the clampdown on travel and all this other sort of stuff coming. It's just, if the king could just take the money, I almost could have left that arrangement alone.
Well, I think that clampdown that you're talking about is because people are starting to realize that the government is illegitimate and the government is being run as a criminal enterprise, and the government is, and so now I think they're moving to like, how do we really lock it down? How do we have 100% absolute control using technocracy, using programmable digital money, using a Chinese style social credit score, using the ability to, to turn off people's ability to buy and sell. I know in the case of the trucker protests in Canada, they went and turned off people's bank accounts. And so now they're realizing that the population is onto them. And now we better bring in 100% total control using the technocracy and the digital ID and these things, because the population's about to throw us up against the wall if we don't.
Well, that's okay. I'm gonna ask you these questions now. Then, before we get into the deeper contents of the book and stuff. So, the 25 things that you've laid out here. So, what I was thinking of is the U.S. has an archetype or maybe even egregore of freedom. Now, whether that's false or not, it's there. And Canada and the UK and let's say part of the West in the EU doesn't have that. And it's being destroyed right now. So I'm having a hard time reconciling like how they're overtly and visually destroying the West, like in front of us. And so for me, sometimes I look at the States and I go, man, that really does have more of what I want compared to what's happening in the West. The States have a little bit more autonomy than our provinces have in Canada. And they're at least talking, like they're not talking about destroying it. Like in the West, besides the States, like they're literally saying like, we're going to destroy your culture. We're doing it now. We're going to do it. So like, how do you reconcile that, the difference there between these different governments? Because I would sort of combine like the governments of the West as one kind of also egregore, which is based on, to me, it's like more overt lies and a wrong not that the philosophy of the States is right either, but you understand what I'm saying? It's more of a directly wrong sort of philosophy. It's like, we're just going to inject all these immigrants in your countries. We're going to ignore crime. We're going to have 2-tier justice systems. We're going to legalize all the hard drugs. Like, and there's arguments for both sides of these too, but it's not, whatever they're doing is just not working. It hasn't been working for like 10 or 15 years and it's destroying it. So,
well, the way the analogy that I like to use is one that I've stolen from your fellow Canadian, Stefan Molyneux.
Yeah.
And I really like his analogy of, you don't think of, there are all these different countries in the world, think of different tax farms. And so think of, that all these different countries are essentially running different variations of government on their population. So government is best thought of as a technique for kind of robbing and controlling populations, but there's local versions of government where the local mafia families that are running that particular country. The Bronfmans in Canada is one example, Mark Carney's, or it's a little bit different than the version that we're running, which is a little bit different than the version that the Nordic states are running, which is a little bit different than the version that the Mexicans are running. But at the end of the day, they're all running kind of the same game, which is we're going to put you in a mandatory government school. There's going to be a youth program. We're going to get you indoctrinated into you're not a free and independent human being. You're a Canadian or an American or an Englishman or whatever. And by virtue of where you're born, you now owe money to Washington, D.C. or Calgary or wherever. And based on that system, there's all these different tax farms on the world that are all, running a version of that. But the United States is kind of unique for some of the reasons that you just outlined. So number one, we were the epicenter of where the information revolution was. So they gave us the internet first, and we're all wired together. And the internet is a DARPA military. It is a military network that they let us use to, so that we can be tracked, traced, and surveilled and controlled on it. And they can algorithmically control the information that we receive to a certain degree. But at the end of the day, you are able to go, for the most part, people are able to go to almost and find out, almost anything about what's really going on. The truth is out there. The truth is not for all people. It's only for those that seek it. Ayn Rand said, the truth is not for everybody, only those that seek it. And so you can go find it on the self-directed internet. And so we were the epicenter of that. And so we're kind of waking up to the control system and the scam of government and the scam of fractional reserve banking and everything like that. The second thing that separates us is we do, to your point, is we do have this history of liberty. We do believe that we defeated the British, although that is something that is some people disagree with that and think that they won, surreptitiously, came in the back door and have put the same British system, feudalism system in place through stealth in the, afterwards. But we have a history of liberty, and we are armed to the teeth. So we're one of the last few populations that are armed, and we have the most powerful military in the world. So if the United States ever got control of the military and the federal law enforcement agencies, if we were able to wrest it away from this organized crime system that has been tax farming and robbing us and stealing the value out of the money and everything else that we're doing, and we had the armaments of the military at our disposal, we could go anywhere on this planet and we could round up this organized crime system, air mobile, air cav, and so we're really the most dangerous plantation out of all of the plantations that they're managing. And so what I think is going on in the United States is I think hey, why don't we just knock this one over? Why don't we collapse the currency? Why don't we bring in, why don't we debase the culture? Why don't we leave the borders wide open and bring in, immigrants? Why don't we divide and conquer the population on the issue in the next presidential term? Why don't we, because this tax farm is our most problematic tax farm, let's just go ahead and bring it down. Yeah, we're going to take a haircut on our investments in that country. We may lose a couple of zeros after it's all over. Let's try and hold on to all of the real assets that we stole with fractional reserve dollars. Let's try and hold on to the plant, the property, the equipment, the real estate, the precious metals, the everything like that. But let's wipe them out so that we don't have to worry about them wiping us out.
So, okay, let me ask it this way, more of a philosophical why question. So why would the rest of the tax farms in the West then? Why? Because they could have had us. Like, this is what I can't understand. They could have had us. They could have had us if they just gave us a little bit of prosperity and stuff. They would have been able to track us and trace us. Like, it wouldn't have been so difficult. But it seems like they're purposefully destroying it, and I know there's probably a philosophy there about, okay, and then they can put in this control grid, and once the sort of the revolt happens, they can clamp down and put. But that seems really risky to me. Like, they don't really want a revolution, I would think, because we're so fragile. I mean, and I don't want a revolution anymore either. I mean, if anything goes out, power, internet, water, we're toast. Like, we're toast as a civilization. So why are they? Because at least the States is pretending that there's a fight going on inside, but we don't have a fight in Canada. Like, and same with the UK. Like, we are so compromised in the rest of the EU there that I'm like, is this complete incompetence? Like, why are they destroying the countries, waiting for a revolution to happen that could potentially be a complete disaster? So that, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Why would they? Is it incompetence, or are they actually like just stumbling along? And this is an organic growth that happens with government, like this criminal organization. The government inevitably just gets to this point where it destroys itself.
Yeah, they're bringing in a technocracy. So, like, I think they can do it. I think they think they can do it without a revolution. And I don't know if that's the case. And so there may very well be a revolution in the United States, because there's a lot of people that feel like I am, that understand who these people are, and that are ticked off, and we're all armed to the teeth here. And so, like, there very well could be a revolution of people that don't want to get robbed, don't want to get controlled, don't want to, have the needle forced in their arm, or pissed off about the relatives that they've lost.
Yeah,
got the needle. And so, like, there's a lot of anger. And so, but I think that they think they can do it without a revolution by bringing in the technocracy. So that what they're going to do is they're slowly and surely censoring the internet, censoring the information, turning people down on social media, de-indexing them, deplatforming them, demonetizing them, shadow banning them. They're getting people, like we were talking about right before we went live, on X and on Substack and on Facebook, where they're controlling the information in the feed. Okay, they're feeding people what they want to feed them in the feed. They're platforming and shadow banning authentic voices at the same time that they're turning up controlled opposition voices, to where the majority of the population doesn't really know exactly what's going on. They don't know who to trust. They don't know which voices are controlled opposition, which ones aren't. And so, like, they're in some ways they're winning, because they're building this panopticon, this control grid, this ability to control the information society receives, either through the monopolized media or the algorithmic censorship of the internet, at the same time that they're bringing in this digital prison. Slowly but surely, here comes the digital ID, here comes programmable money. I think they're going to collapse the currency here in the United States. Number one, because they've hoarded out and there's very little value left, and it's like, like all the banks have been stealing the value out of the currency by printing as much as they want and everything. And so, like I think the currency is going down. I think they're trying to figure out, how do we reboot it on programmable digital money, whether that's a stable coin or whether that's a central bank digital currency remains to be seen. But they're going to get the ability to turn off people's ability to buy and sell. They want the ability to turn off people's ability to buy and sell. They want to demonetize voices like me. They want to turn us off completely off of off the internet because of the digital ID completely. And so they're moving to that future. And so I think that they think they can do it without a revolution. I think there may be a revolution. We'll see what plays out. But I think they think they can do it without a revolution.
Okay, yeah. So that includes like Europe and like the West and USA, both kind of.
Yeah. So I mean, like in Western Europe, they're running a lot of the same, destabilization techniques on the other Western powers. They're running unrestricted immigration. They're running the same algorithmic censorship of the media. They're running the same monopolization of the media. They're using confiscatory taxation to keep their populations artificially poor. They're stealing the value out of people's money with inflationary, everybody's inflating at essentially the same rate, so that there's no lifeboat of currencies that you can jump into. It used to be the Swiss franc was like, and then they depegged it from gold, and then there's not a, like a Western based currency that is non-inflationary. So they're, everybody, they're all in on it together. They're all debasing simultaneously. They're all, most of them are running fractional reserve banking on their populations. They're all surveilling their populations. They're all moving to digital ID. So digital ID popped up in 17 countries essentially simultaneously in the past couple of months. And so it is I do believe it is a global system, and it is being brought in globally. There's over a dozen banks that are running either, central bank digital currencies or some flavor of money. I think if they do collapse the dollar in the United States, or they have a dollar crisis, or they have a dollar devaluation, I think what they're going to do is they're going to offer the population universal basic income. It's okay, you've lost all your money and the value of all your savings and everything, but we'll give you UBI, but you just have to have a digital ID to get it.
UBI via stablecoin is kind of what I predicted.
I think you're right too. That's what I think the US flavor is going to be.
Yeah. So they're letting us back on YouTube. Like a lot of us have been let back on YouTube, and that's probably the easier control and corral it instead of having everybody spread out everywhere. Like let people back in on these main platforms, and then they have a better handle on it probably.
Well, they have a better handle on them, and they also have the ability to tempt the weak-minded away through the algorithmic temptations of recommended for you by YouTube on the right-hand side. So that's one. So number one, they can still, flip the knob and turn off your ability, for people to be able to organically share your content. Yeah. And so like somebody that sees this on YouTube, they could hit share and they could share it to their channel, but YouTube's not really going to share it to their channel. Yeah. And so they would rather you get it from YouTube than get it to another platform that would actually allow the person that's watching this to physically share it to a channel. I've actually, like on Facebook, I think that's one of the reasons they keep you on Facebook. I've actually, emailed a friend of mine like a link and said, hey, watch this video. And I didn't hear back from him. And I contacted him, and we figured out that Facebook didn't send my link to him. Yeah. And so as long as they can keep people corralled on these what I think are military platforms, I think the internet was a military network. It was created by DARPA in the United States. It was originally ARPA, the Advanced Research Project Agency, that became DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. It's a military network. I think by the time they gave it to the population, they'd already figured out all the winners. They'd already figured out what social media was going to look like. They'd already, invested in companies to dominate this new media technology the same way they dominated radio, the same way they dominated television, the same way they dominated, movies. We're going to control the information that society receives so we can lead them around by the nose. And we've been doing it since the days of the newspaper, which I broke down in my first book, Government, the Biggest Scam in History. But they've been controlling the information society receives since the days of the newspaper. They're just doing it in a more sophisticated way in the modern age.
Isn't it evidence that the harder they squeeze, the more gets out through their fingers? We talked about radio, and before that print, and now we're into the internet, where the mechanisms of control and technocracy should only be getting tighter and tighter. But at the same time, information from our side, or whatever side you want to call it, seems to be at an all-time high and currently accelerating exponentially. So is that just a natural byproduct or natural consequence of their own system? Is there a point where they close the loop on that?
So that's kind of funny because, so I'm an ex-networking guy, internet guy, and I used to work at global ISPs. I used to build networks for Wall Street for market data trading floor technology. And I actually think they must have been like I think it was probably 50% of the room wanted to give everybody the internet so they could be tracked, traced, and surveilled. And 50% of the room was like, no, it's bi-directional. They're going to be able to go and they're going to be able to get, we're not going to be able to censor the way that we're able to censor with 3 television networks and PBS. And so I think there was a real fight, and I don't it's either going to, and I don't, it's we don't know how it's going to end up yet. Are we going to be able to wake up enough of humanity in time before they get the technocracy control grid in place? Or are they going to get the control grid in place? But that's the race that we're in right now.
I have
it's
a
not
theory.
clear.
And there's the third caveat of if the existing infrastructure that they're trying to build the new grid on is even going to be up to the task, because I'm of the mind that we have a huge competency problem that, if the grid, like say, for example, the power grid in Alberta or the US starts to go down, they're not going to get the fucking thing back up. I mean, I would say that if we had to start from scratch right now today, the current generation could not build the electrical grid that our great grandparents built.
Yeah.
Or are they competent enough to do it? I mean, forget the infrastructure, the grid, because I have a theory that what you talked about, the waking people up, I think it has to happen. I've kind of come to the acceptance, and it's not black pilled. I think it's going to end up fine in the end, but we have to go through this to wake everybody up. So the control grid is going to be attempted. I just don't think they can do it. I think they're going to fail, and that failure at that massive attempt is finally going to be enough to wake the majority of people up, so that we can get some sort of combination of digital infrastructure and freedom that we want.
I'm an optimist too. I actually think we win in the end, and part of the reason that I think that we win in the end, there's a couple of reasons why I think we win in the end, but one of the reasons is because government has been the biggest scam in history, and really any adult with 2 neurons rubbed together that can step back and just evaluate what they were taught as a child about the legitimacy of government or the morality of government or the logic of government, as long as they're not getting a government pay. It's a lot harder if they're getting a government paycheck, but everybody that's not getting a government pay, it's hard to get a man to understand something when his salary depends upon his not understanding it. But everybody that's not getting a government paycheck can really take a look at government in a way and say, hey, wow, that is illegitimate. That doesn't make any sense. That's wrong. That's immoral. And that's also, it's not working. It's not producing the goods. We're not getting what we wanted. It's not protecting rights. It's not limiting government. It's making things worse instead of better. And it's costing more and more money every year. We got to get rid of it. It was good. It looked good on paper, sounded good on paper. And so that's reason number one. But the other reason that I'm optimistic is because the government really is running all these techniques that I break down in the new book, To See the Cages, to Leave It. When people realize that the government is running game on them, is running unethically manipulative techniques on the population, and even though Canada might not be running, all 25 techniques that I break down in the book, it's really 26, but get into that in a bit. But they are running the mandatory government school system. I'm assuming you guys have Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Explorers, your equivalent of JROTC, ROTC, and police and military training. I'm assuming that it might not be all 25, but I bet that
it's more like junior hockey league, maybe.
Yeah. The beauty about Canada is that it's just doing all those things, but it's just at such a pathetic level compared to the level that the U.S. is able to pull off things like the military. I mean, just Alberta's got 4 million people and we're 3,000 police officers short. So it's I don't know what the ratio is there, and that number just keeps going up every year. So it's I think that especially Western Canada, where it's a little less populated, there's this sort of unique thing where you could have sort of what's going on in Russia right now, where it's Moscow can make whatever crazy laws they want, but once you get 150 miles out of Moscow, there's just no real infrastructure or any sort of manpower to enforce it, and the cities sort of become the choke points. Whereas why I kind of go back, and I've gone back and forth with this, a dozen times just in the last 5 or 10 years. Whereas the states, where it does have that stronger sense of freedom, a lot more people that probably think like I do, a lot more weapons. They also have that the I guess the unknown is that same military that you were talking about. It's just like, which way is that fucking thing going to point? Because I don't want the Canadian government to point the military at me either, but at least if they do, I know it's just a bunch of jamokes with the same firepower I've got. Whereas when the US, and you see in the US, these sort of super police stations coming up where it's just like the precinct down the road has a fucking tank and a couple of weird troop carrier things, and they look like stormtroopers. So I'm constantly back and forth on whether you're better off in a country that's kind of pathetic like Canada, or one that's kind of great like America. So I've kind of decided right now it's kind of best to be in the shitty one with access to the good one that's not too hard to get to.
Right. So I sympathize with you, but I guess my point is that once people realize, so the Canadian government, the people running the Canadian, when I say the Canadian government, I mean the bankers and the criminals,
the shadow government, not the elected people.
They're like, they would love to run the exact same techniques on Canada, and they're all trying to do it, and all these countries are they beta test certain things in other countries and bring them to this country, and China uses things that we use on their population, and we use things that, like, we're now going to use social credit scores on our population, and so that all the governments are kind of in on it together. And so my point of why I'm so optimistic is that once you realize that it is illegitimate, and that these governments are trying to trick you and are trying to run a kind of pimp game on you. And a pimp game, I use the word pimp game because, like, pimp is someone that uses unethically manipulative techniques to get a woman to, pay him money. Okay. And the government is running pimp game. They're running a bunch of unethically manipulative techniques to get, bitch ass slaves to pay them money. Like, once you realize that's going on, nobody wants to be a bitch ass slave. Nobody wants to have game run on them. Nobody wants to be treated, like that. And so most people are out unless you're getting a paycheck from the government. And so that's why I don't think that the government is going to be able, I think that the knowledge of what's going on is spreading around the planet at the speed of light. And there's no way to put the genie back in the bottle. There's no way to stop it in the information age. You can stall it, you can demonetize it, and you can deplatform it, and you can shadow ban it. Okay. But all you're doing is slowing it down. It's still, it's every single day, and it's a one-way revolution. That's the kind of the final thing is, once you realize it's illegitimate, once you realize they're running pimp game, once you realize these things, nobody goes back. They don't so they can't, it's a one-way revolution, and so we win in the end. But it may collapse because they've stolen all the value out of the dollar. It may collapse because they may collapse it as a technique to try and hold on to it. And then I think if they do that, it won't be because the collapse won't be because they stole all the value out of the dollar. The collapse will be because of the Chinese cyber attack, and then that's why they have to censor the internet, and that's why you've got to have a digital ID, and that's why you're it's not going to be the same internet anymore, and you're not going to be able to share certain things, and it's going to it may be a financial collapse with internet censorship because it was a Chinese cyber attack.
What responsibility does the general population bear for being retarded? I mean, because there's got to be, Graham and I kind of go back and forth on this, and sometimes where it's sure we've got these people, they're doing terrible things, but at the same time, it's like 4 to 5 people, all they give a fuck about is going home and watching the football game, or going home and watching the new episode of Friends, or whatever the fuck it is, and they just don't care to take any real agency over their life or their society. So where did we sort of lose the script? And I don't mean we, by the people sitting around this table that are trying to make change and are trying to, mold the world more into a way we think it should look. But the general I kind of go back and forth on whether we've ever been up to the task of self-governance, even if we assume for the second that self-governance is real or was real at some step of the way. Have we ever been up to the task? And if we were, when did we lose it?
Well, I think we've been under a multi-generational, chemical, biological weapons program against us. I don't know. You guys ever heard the term "the little people"? Oh, like the little people do that, and the little people, what the little people think. The term "the little people" came out of the Middle Ages because the aristocracy was essentially keeping the serfs malnourished to where they were physically smaller than the aristocracy as a way of kind of keeping them under their thumb.
Wow.
They were keeping them malnourished. And so the modern version of the little people is what I call the fluoridated, vaccinated, government school, corporate food eating, television watching, dumbed down public. And I say that like half jokingly around, but like we've been under, it's a chemical, biological warfare operation that's put fluoride into the water. It's put mercury, aluminum, polysorbate 80, into vaccines. It's glyphosated the wheat and then double dose the glyphosated on to dry it out right before, harvesting. It's putting atrazine. It's recombinant bovine growth hormone in the food. It's putting glutamates in the food to make the poisonous food psychologically and physiologically addictive. It's aspartame. It's
the psychological cult creation techniques that you got in your book too. I mean, it's full of that. I mean, you could almost argue that is almost worse than all the physical stuff.
Yeah. So there, in addition to, to dumbing them down, with the chemicals in the food and with the chemicals in the vaccines and everything like that, they're running this game where they're forcing you to go to the mandatory government school where they're not going to teach you the trivium. They're not going to teach you how to, to give you a firewall for the mind to understand what's true and what's not true, how to recognize a logical fallacy. To the contrary, they're going to run a bunch of unethically manipulative techniques that most of the teachers have no clue about. Like they have no clue why they do it. They were just taught in their teacher program, this is how you do classroom management. You do it with the red, yellow, green troublemaker board. And that's what all the other teachers do. And so they use the red, yellow, green troublemaker board, not understanding what it does to the student's self-esteem, that every time they talk, they get hammered down or publicly shamed. So they're going to do public shaming and the collective punishment, and they're going to do the obedience techniques of walking in a line, and they're never going to think twice about why the school resource officer, why there's a police officer in the school. They're never going to think twice about the fact that they're forcing that the kids can't leave, that they're searching the kids, or they're conditioning the kids to be searched by a government agent at any time for any reason, that there is no privacy, that the kids can't leave. In some cases, the kids can't leave if the parents come to get them. The school won't let the kids leave. And so like they're conditioning a slavery mentality into the population without understanding it. So that's part of it. And so it is a multi-trillion-dollar intergenerational, psychological and chemical and biological attack on the population. So I feel like I feel for whatever reason it glanced off me. I mean, I feel I'm definitely got affected by the vaccines, but like for whatever reason, I can see through it. And I know there's a lot of other people that can see through it. Part of the good news though, is here in the United States, I'm sure it's going on in Canada too. Millions and millions and millions of people have taken their kids out of the government school system. millions and millions of people have gotten the fluoride out of their water. Millions of people aren't brushing with the fluoride toothpaste. Millions of people aren't giving their kids the vaccines anymore. Millions of people aren't letting their kids go into the military. Millions of people are keeping their kids out of the school. Like, so it's like there is a renaissance. There is a growing awareness that you don't want to take the vaccine, that you don't want to drink the fluoridated water. And so I think more and more people are waking up to it. And so the next generation, there's going to be more geniuses. There's going to be more independent thinkers. There's going to be more people that their parents are going to raise their kids to understand the system because of the self-directed internet, because now they understand the system through the self-directed internet and the authentic voices and getting to see conversations like this and understanding what's going on. So they're going to raise their kids like that. And so there's no stopping that as well. And so we do win in the end, but like I said, it could be trouble because they've stolen all the value out of the dollar. They've kept everybody artificially poor. They've waged this economic warfare of inflation and confiscatory taxation and lockdowns and COVID bullshit and everything like that. They've impoverished the country to the point of where it may break, but hopefully we reboot on real freedom and not government, yet again.
I think probably the worst offense was how fragile we've made everything based on, first electricity and then the internet. I mean, those are sort of the two things that it wouldn't really take much to completely break this thing. And then even if we do win and get past the government, it's like, how long do we get to keep the lights on and the water on and because at this point, we're at the point where the internet goes out, the fucking lights probably aren't far behind.
That's true. So yes, and it's funny because so I agree with what you're saying in the short term, but in the long term, what I find fascinating and interesting, at least on the electricity side, is that we are getting more and more decentralized, and you are getting more and more residential solar. You're getting more and more people with battery banks. You're getting more and more people that have the ability, whether it's, micro hydro or micro wind or, whatever it is, more and more people are becoming resilient, in their home power and residential power and small business power and things like that. So I think that is a good trend. But I'll tell you this, because I'm as an ex-internet guy, as a guy that used to work at global ISPs, they have the ability to turn off the internet anytime they want to turn off the internet. There was a revelation that came out. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Room 641A, but a whistleblower at AT&T released the fact that the NSA had little substations at AT&T and other major internet providers. In the case of AT&T, it was in their San Francisco data center. The whistleblower's name was Mark Klein. You can go to the Wikipedia page for Room 641A. He released the wiring diagrams. He released photos of the facility. He released equipment lists. And AT&T was both splitting off the entire core route, their entire what's called the kind of like the core route of the internet, where they constantly, the internet's a network of networks, and there's 3 or 4 primary providers, Level 3 and Verizon and AT&T and others, and they concentrate, all of the traffic from smaller providers, and they provide exchanges where they exchange the traffic. But while it's on the core internet route, they were taking almost the entire internet, because AT&T is a huge footprint of that. And the NSA was copying it all at wire speed. And they had these boxes, on that core route that could turn it off too. And so they've already got if there was a widespread, thing, I have no doubt they're going to turn the internet off like that. If it's, and they've done it in other countries too, where in periods of revolution, in Egypt turned the internet off as one example. Like, they're going to turn the internet off if the people are about to throw the politicians and up against the wall in Washington, D.C., they're going to turn the internet off.
Etienne, thank you for coming on the show. Where can people get the book? Where can they follow you? Do you have any social media they can follow you around on?
So my foundation, the Art of Liberty Foundation, is at artofliberty.org. You can almost get all my free writings at artofliberty.substack.com. You can get To See the Cage is to Leave It, 25 Techniques the Few Use to Control the Many at seethecage.com. And you can get Government, the Biggest Scam in History, How Intergenerational Organized Crime Runs the Government, the Media, and Academia at government-scam.com. And at both of those sites, we've got a combo deal where you can get the book and the flash drive and everything and save some money. And we've got these friends bundles with Christmas coming up. You can blow your friends and your relatives' minds and wake them up in a very positive way, in a way that absolutely positively cannot be ignored.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you guys. Thank you all for doing what y'all do. It has been a pleasure, and I look forward to the next time that we talk.
Right on, buddy. Thanks a lot. It was awesome.
Have a good day.
You too.
And that's the end of the free version of the show, Gramerica Out Loud. We hope you guys enjoyed it. We get into a bunch of great stuff in the second half. Of course, if you guys want to check that out, head over to GramericaOutlaw.ca today. Sign up. Not only can you support us and keep us in business, this is all we can do because, you get canceled nowadays for talking about the stuff we talk about. So if I go and try and get a real job, they're going to look at me like I'm crazy Nazi. So
yeah, we're pigeonholing ourselves.
We're unhireable. So check out GramericaOutlaw.ca. $6 a month. Sign up today. Not only does it support us and keep us on the air, it also gets you an extension to this show. You get an extra 45 minutes or a half hour, however long this was. You get just as much. You get twice as much show for your buck. So sign up over there and do that. And that's how you support us. That's the best way to keep us in business. And you get all that extra content and the whole extra show. We do a whole extra show a week for us supporters, doing a roundup. So check that out. And of course, Gramerica.ca for our other podcast. Over 700 episodes over there. Contact at thecabin.com for trips and events. Adultbrain.ca for audiobooks and ebooks and print books and publishing books, any of that stuff, all of the above, and GramericaCBD.com for all the other good stuff.
And A-List.
Oh, that's right. And A-List.ca for Canadian content and Gramerica.ca/rooms if that's what floats your boat. Of course, you can email us, Graham@Gramerica.com as well. But main thing is to sign up for Plus and support us. So GramericaOutlaw.ca, sign up today. Other than that, we love you guys. Thanks for listening. And we will see you next week.
Who's gonna kill this sacred cow? You were never political anyhow. Since when did you start trusting in the government? Since when was it okay to ridicule and shame your neighbor? Your opinions have become as fickle as artificial flavors. What matters most to you? What the TV host told you to do? Or a moral compass that points true north, oh true? Who's gonna kill this sacred cow? You were never religious anyhow. Since when did you kiss the ring on the hand of the Pope? Since when do we need pharmaceuticals to cope? Your soul has become, ever-loving soul has become as brittle as communion wafers. What matters most to you? What the Holy Ghost told you to do? Or a moral compass that points true north, oh true? I'm gonna kill this sacred cow. Bureaucrats think I'm non-essential anyhow. Since when has our culture become so lowbrow? It's all touchscreens, and nobody has any know-how. Your idea of fun is taking 1,001 photos of your duck face. Matters most to you what the celebrities post told you was cool, or a moral compass that points true north, oh true. I'm gonna kill this sacred cow. I'm gonna kill your 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 sacred cow.